8 things the middle class think are assets, but actually are not. Number 1, your job. I see too many people with life just passing them by. They remain at a stagnant job where they feel like there's no progression. I'm saying today, don't waste your time in a job that you despise or that you hate. If you hate waking up every single morning going to that job, then actively do something to change that. Whether that be going home and picking up a new skill that you've always wanted to learn, or picking up a new hobby, or just doing something that's going to change your life. Your job is not an asset, even though it may be your main source of income. And again, this is a common misconception. Just because it's your main source of income, it may not actually be an asset. And a lot of rich people understand that through their assets, they're able to generate more wealth. Yes, from your job, you're able to create more wealth. However, your job alone is not an asset. Why? Because you can quickly understand that you are not indispensable. And when your company has a restructuring or wants to cut down their expenses, you'll quickly realize that you are in fact not indispensable. And as a result, you would realize from that situation, the job that you thought was secure isn't actually secure and therefore isn't actually an asset. Think about it. Nobody got rich working a 9 to 5. Unless you're an investment banker or the few exceptions, but majority of people don't get rich through a 9 to 5 alone. You must understand what your goal is in life and start to think of ideas of gaining a competitive advantage to ensure you achieve your goal. You may have already achieved your goal, and that's fine, but not everyone has. So this video is specifically for the people who haven't yet achieved their goals. If you really want to be wealthy, you have to be willing to take risks. And that is an uncomfortable truth you're just gonna have to deal with. Otherwise, your thoughts of being rich and wealthy will remain thoughts, and that's it. They'll never turn into fruition. They'll never be anything more than thoughts. Instead, follow your passion. I admit this is easier said than done, but it's all about starting small and not expecting the final product today. What I mean by this is start off in small chunks. Don't expect to have the final result by yesterday or by today, but instead start off small, focus on what actually interests you or what you have a passion in, and start to grow from there. Number 2, your house is not an asset. We've all heard the fantastic book by Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and in that book he discusses your home not being your biggest asset, which is a common misconception. For those who have read the book, we think about it and we agree with the statement, then still go and buy a primary house to live in. I understand that every situation is unique and you can't use a one-size-fits-all for this. But for those who have acquired that entrepreneurial mindset and still go into the same decision, is some of the reasons why you remain in the middle class. If we define an asset as something that puts money in our pockets, right? Simple explanation. An asset is something that puts money in our pockets, and a liability is something that takes money out of our pockets. Then a primary house that you're living in will have rent, bills, taxes, and other expenses, which will take money out of your pocket every single month. Although you are benefiting from the appreciation in the property value, the property price over the months/years, there is no cash flow, no direct cash flow from this, and it is a constant liability. If you have a secondary home, however, that you are renting out and then that would be generating income for you, then that could be considered an asset. But you need to learn the difference between the two. And for those who may still be confused, examples of assets, examples of things that put money into your pockets are things like stocks, shares, rental properties or properties in general, side businesses, commodities like gold or silver. These are financially yielding products which continue to put money in your pocket, so they will be classed as assets. And then examples of liabilities are a car if you don't use it for work purposes such as cab or taxi, or if you need to move equipment in order to perform your job. So if you're using your car for social use, then it's a liability. A TV is an example of a liability, and most importantly, your primary home that you live in is a liability. Learn to look through your bank statement and categorize assets and liabilities, because the rich do it and it works for them all the time. And this is how they remain ahead of their finances and ahead of everyone else in the middle class sector. Number 3, spend now, invest later. When you receive your paycheck from your employer, do you instantly look online for new deals or eye up the new pair of shoes you've always wanted? Or do you browse through shops online or in person to see if there's anything that you're interested in or anything that tickles your fancy? Well, if you continue to do this month after month, you'll quickly realize that your bank account suffers as a result. Why? Because there's something called impulse buying, and companies use millions of pounds in their marketing strategy to ensure that if you're just browsing, you're going to see the offers. Amazon do it. They've got a deals section. A lot of these companies have offer sections or sales sections. It's in red because it plugs a psychological neuron in your brain that makes you think, stop, alert, let me read it. These things have been put in place to make sure that you spend more. So every single time that paycheck comes, if you constantly buy things, buy liabilities, then you're always going to remain in the middle class. The whole point of this is to have enough money after you have invested to spend on all the necessary expenditures, such as food, such as rent, such as gym, etc. The plan here is eventually the investments you set from as early as possible start to increase due to the return of investments and compounding interest over time. They will be able to cover your expenditure, but you have to prioritize the investments first because nobody else will in your life. So what I mean by that is, if you want to spend first, then invest first so that the return on your investments can allow you to start spending first. But you need to take into consideration that it does take time for you to get to that position where your investments are making you enough money for you to use that to expense a certain lifestyle. To be clear, I'm not saying don't pay your bills first. I am saying find a formula that works for you where you are able to invest a comfortable amount every month and you have enough left over to save, pay your rent and go out and all other expenses in your life. In order to actually get here, you can follow the 50-30-20 rule that a lot of bank accounts also offer as well, and they explain in much more detail if you want to find out more. But ultimately what it is 50% of your income is used for your needs, 30% is spent on any wants, and then 20% goes towards your savings, and that's the 50-30-20 rule. Statistics show that those who invest first tend to have higher amounts of generational wealth to pass on. The key here, guys, is consistency. The next thing the middle class commonly think is an asset, but actually is not, is being a formal student in school and also in society. Think about it. When you were in school, all the A-star or top grade students found it easy to do their homework on time and get into the fancy university or colleges, but those who challenged conventional ways of learning were not encouraged to do so in the educational system. And typically what happened is the teacher would literally just tell them off. They'll say, don't say that, do your homework, this is what you have to do. And then they'll give them step by step exactly what they need to do, and they can't go outside of that. Well, those same A-star top students have been molded to be perfect employees, and they stay that way because everything is always structured for them, and they panic when they are not being told exactly what to do because they can't think by themselves. I know this sounds harsh, but it's actually the truth. Those who see the educational system as being broken and then try to challenge it are usually the business owners later on in life, because they understand risk and reward, and they are willing to take the leap of faith in starting something new instead of working for another man's corporation. Those who own businesses can sometimes be the students who didn't have the best grades in school, but hire accountants and financial advisors to do their paperwork. And those accountants and financial advisors were the A-star students in school. So you can see how this entire script flips. So in school, they're the top students. They're normally being praised by the teachers. They're coming out with A-stars, fantastic results. And then the business owners are normally the kids who are sat at the back of class, chewing gum, talking loud in class while the teacher's talking. But they're the ones who are able to actually create a business because they have the risk tolerance. And then they employ the A-star students to be their accountants and financial advisors. This is a clear skill that the rich are able to decipher. The middle class remain fantastic employees. This links back to my earlier point being your job is not your biggest asset. So what exactly should you do here? Well, from as early as school, you should start to think of new ways that you can develop you can reinvent the cycle. When I say that, I mean that Start thinking of ways that is going to create a solution or make someone's life easier for them. That way, you can start to think outside of the box. You can start to look at things and say, hold on, someone's getting paid because I'm able to look at this. Or someone's probably got paid because there's a service that someone's provided for someone else. And that way, your business just starts thinking of different businesses. It's about coming out of a mindset of being a consumer instead of being a creator or an inventor of something. The fifth mistake that middle class make that they think are assets is that nobody can guarantee they will be rich or wealthy, but what you can do is increase your chances. So sometimes the middle class want to start a side business or a side venture and they expect 100% it has to work. If they're leaving their 9 to 5 or if this is a new journey that they want to embark on, it has to work out. They're not willing to go through trial and error. They're not willing to weather the storm in the bad periods because they feel like middle class, normally they believe that it must work. But the rich understand that there's never a guarantee that something is going to work or an opportunity is going to fall through. So what do the rich do to increase their chances? Well, the rich put in the hours, which leads to days, which leads to weeks of timing, of hard work at the beginning of any process that they want to learn. And then they learn it as a recipe to work smarter and not harder. I want to elaborate on this. If you want to be successful in life, you must put in the hard work and time in the beginning. And eventually, once you understand what you're doing and you're advanced in whatever you are doing, you can find ways to work smarter. How does working smarter look like? Well, it can come in the form of offering online courses or hiring people for expansion. These are all ways you can increase your chances of being rich. But as I said earlier, there is no guarantee that you're going to be rich or wealthy. Also, instead of always trying to find new ways to cut up your credit cards and save money on bills, start looking at new investment ideas that can fill a hole in your entrepreneurial mindset. Figure out a solution to a problem. Number 6, money is the root of all evil. This is a common misconception that the middle class continue to always think. They blame the rich. They say the rich got there by doing bad things or shady deals. Don't get me wrong, money does have its cons, but money also emphasizes individuals' true motives and behaviors. So money almost works as a character tester. If you're a greedy person before you have money, you'll be even greedier after you have money. The middle class say things like, I don't want money, I want happiness. Of course, we all want happiness, but we don't necessarily want to sacrifice one for the other when we can have both. Be smart with your financial decisions and always have a plan. Those who change when the money comes are usually individuals that have never amassed that amount of wealth and have no plan, so they don't know how to act. Number 7, saving money instead of investing. The secret to wealth is, well, it's no secret because I've said it countless times here. You have to invest to become rich. Leaving money in a near zero interest savings account will not get you rich, guys. Just ask anyone you know who has a lot of money. And even if you don't know anyone who has a lot of money, if you see someone in a very nice affluent neighborhood and you feel to just ask them, and they're an older person, just ask them what's the best way to accumulate wealth. And I guarantee you, they'll mention starting early and they'll mention some type of investment that you're passionate about. What they will not mention is staying in a 9 to 5 your whole life. I suggest even putting your money in a high yield fixed savings account instead of an everyday savings account from your local high street. The middle class tend to think money is scarce, but the rich understand that there's an abundance of money. And even if it does become scarce, the banks can just print more money. This is something called quantitative easing. This causes the middle class to cut back on investing because they feel money needs to be hoarded, thus affecting their investment opportunities. The middle class trust banks way too much. The middle class are the ones who make the banks rich because the banks invest with the middle class money that they've deposited. And then the middle class make the rich even richer because they take out the loans that the money that the middle class has deposited into the banks. If you'd like me to go into more detail on this, let me know in the comment section and I'll do an entire video on this. Number 8, a job is a job. What I mean by this is middle class want to climb the corporate ladder, whereas the rich want to own the corporate ladder. There is a massive difference between the two. The rich aim at creating a product or service that will create a solution or make life easier for a targeted group, thus getting paid the big bucks for this in exchange. The middle class tried to impress their managers by doing extra work, working late, and applying for positions that will elevate their career. Here's the key difference here. The rich work to learn, but the middle class work to earn. I repeat that one more time. The rich work to learn, but the middle class work to earn. So in conclusion, overall, to be successful, you have to come out of your comfort zone and take risks. That's the true secret sauce. There is no one line I can say and you follow to become rich. Really, it's just stay persistent and continually be creative and entrepreneurial, and stop being a consumer and try and find out how you can be a creator.